Do you want a mask? Brent just got back from the Oregon Trail. Typhoid.
Dysentery. You always died from dysentery.
Yep.
Courtney's joking because they tested me for whooping cough last week and I didn't have it. But there was
Well,
this-
good, because I don't think you're not like 5, right?
No, I think you can get it
I
when
know.
you're older.
I know. Brent, I'm having a little bit of a hard time hearing you. It's really soft.
He didn't have his mic on, I don't
How about now?
Okay. Yep, that's better.
I'd like to thank everyone who's here for understanding that sometimes we can hear ourselves in the mic and still be willing to speak into them. Because we had an issue at my last meeting that I was in, not here, that in order for the people at home to be able to hear the mics had to be turned up, and they have it set up so that the speakers then project back to you. And so multiple people thought they were too loud, so they started talking from all the way back here, which completely defeated the purpose of turning up the mics. And I felt really bad for the people at home. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm so loud. I'm gonna put, and it's like,
Creed.
no, you need to be loud. You need to just deal with it.
All right, it is 5:30. I will call our June 1st work session to order. Up first, we've got the 10-year utilities infrastructure plan. Mr. Simmons.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Good evening. Let's talk about, let's see if we get it pulled up here in a second. I swear I
I
did.
admitted them. Yes, you did.
I did, but then I didn't finish the process. Yeah. Gotta row the boat. Okay, so that's kind of the 10-year infrastructure plan really is rowing the boat to figure out what is gonna come next and how we prepare for future projects and for future development projects, maybe future infrastructure upgrades for some of the past projects. But last year was a pretty extensive change overall to our infrastructure plan. This year, not so much, but there are some big projects that are getting closer to happening or needing to happen. So one of those projects is the Southwest Infrastructure Extension Project, which we have talked about. You guys have talked about for several years. I've talked about since, the first night I was probably here. But that project is coming close, and last year we had it budgeted for $5.5 million. And at this time, we are budgeting 7.5. So there's a $2 million increase to that project. Now, a lot of that increase is capturing some of the stormwater improvements that will happen with that project that really weren't envisioned or realized at this time last year, as we continue to work with the county to develop what type of project is gonna happen there overall with the extension of water and sewer, plus the roundabout that's gonna be needed in that place, and the reconstruction of the road. So that's where that increase is coming from. You sure can.
Just want to add a little context to what Andrew was talking about. So if you think about last year's number at 5 million, it was really embedded with just the strict cost for water and sewer and bringing those pipes. And as we had that conversation and started engaging the county, we recognized a gap in that if you were to do that project without a street project, you'd still have costs for pavement restoration, right-of-way acquisition, moving of private utilities, and kind of on and on. And so to account for that, just like we would at any street project, we assigned, or Aaron Schmidt, the city engineer, assigned a cost. And so that's where you got the 2 million from. And we'll dig a little bit into that in the 2027 budget preview. But from all indications, conceptually, we have an agreement with Carver County. So we'll be bringing a joint powers agreement for your consideration, probably, I would say the first part of either the first or second meeting in July, where some of those finances are spelled out a little bit more clearly than what we have today, but would be an agreement to do a joint project with the county, have design work started, so you could do construction maybe starting about this time in 27 for the full build out of Jonathan Carver from 4th Street West to the intersection of 11 and 40, which I think checks a lot of the boxes that we talked about at previous work sessions with related to construction fatigue and making sure that we get the most efficient use of dollars towards that project. The county fundamentally has really stepped up in advancing more dollars towards the project than a typical project that's in kind of this sphere. We made an argument that although there's a development portion to this, that this isn't a strictly developer-driven project. And so there was, with this project being identified in their tax plan for the revenue that they collect, they have like a whole list of projects. This was in there, and so I think that's a vehicle, no pun intended, for them to get this project moving forward.
So we talked about not moving this timeline up unless the county was willing to do so. That means that they've agreed to move the timeline
Yes,
up? Okay.
yep. So we were, fundamentally at one point, and this is just round numbers, like a $15 to $16 million project, and like the first estimate we got was like in the $7.5 to $8 million on the city's end.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nooks and crannies within that, and now we're somewhere between 3.5 and 3, so more than less than half the cost. And we have different sources of funding within that I can spell out, but primarily, there's like 500,000 that will be on a developer for the intersection improvements. Part of that cost is for the underpass and trail work that will come out of park dedication. So, and I'll, again, previewing the 2027 stuff. Right now, we have it programmed where you could do it without any contributions from the general fund. If you want to take some additional steps on roadway or streetscape improvements, that's where the general fund would get more involved. So it's an interesting set of conversations, but a little bit more detail than kind of the nuts and bolts on the water sewer stuff that Andrew mentioned. I just wanted to lay that context out. Any questions before I pass it back?
Second project, this project was not included in last year's plan, but it is included in this year's plan, is the Monroe Lift Station for 2029. That's an estimated timeline. But this lift station would serve the western portion of the enclave development that will be coming in. And that can't be served by future gravity lines. So the conversation has really been based upon how big do we make that lift station? Is it the last lift station that we need in that area? So that's what this plan is proposing, is that lift station will be the ultimate lift station that will reach past County Road 43. We'll get portions that can't be served by gravity on the north side of 212. And hopefully, as the enclave development moves forward, that 2029 is a good timeline for that.
So Andrew, we'll have to bond for both of those projects when the time comes, potentially, but will we have enough revenue from trunk fees to be able to make those payments? Is that how we're gonna be paying those?
Yeah, that's a question for Lynn and Brent that can answer that better.
Okay.
Yeah, so when we get through this as the kind of the last kind of bucket of reports, when Northland comes out, they'll be working with Lynn, and then they'll show you what you need to charge in order to pay for the debt service on these. they're two different funding sources. So the Southwest Infrastructure Extension Project is trunk-based or connecting a gap, where the lift station is, come from connection fees. So
Okay.
we define that as a project that serves more than one development. So like, for instance, if we needed a new water tower, we're not gonna charge that just to the enclave or just to Summerfield. So this Monroe lift station is built out in advance, so we don't have to have 3 or 4 lift stations, we can have one. So how that's funded is through connection, so the enclave will pay connection charges, but it'll come over time, and our connection charges are based on what we need for funding all our debt service, so not just that project, but all the other projects that we have in that bucket.
Okay, thank you.
And I think as we continue to go through the infrastructure plan, that's, you know, a good point of this plan is what we give to Northland to run those numbers basically and tell us where we're at, or, you know, what those fees need to be and how we're collecting them. So,
Andrew, I'm sorry to interrupt. Could you speak a little bit more into the microphone? It's still a little bit hard for me to hear
sorry, you scared me.
Thank you.
I had no idea where that
Sorry.
voice was coming from. The voice of God. I was like, where is that coming from? Okay. So some more projects that are getting closer into our, you know, getting actual shovels into the ground. So Southwest Trunk Extension, the levee project, that's another new project that's jumped on the list. Hopefully, maybe we don't need to fund that gap that we have right now, but that's included in the infrastructure plan. And then water system study, that would be more computer-based modeling type thing to figure out what we're gonna need in the future for capacity and where things go. And then hopefully in 2028, we're drilling well 7, which would be the last well that will go into our existing water treatment plant.
So this, I think, answers one of the questions that I had, but I just want to double check. I was looking at, you included a few pages down, the projected water use versus actual water use on highest use days.
Yep.
And we've talked about how we seem at this point to be running lower than anticipated, and that could extend all of this. Is that what that 2027 study is to update? Or something like that?
Yeah, something similar to that. A lot of that's gonna be done through the comp plan process as well, like our water supply plan will have to be updated. Wellhead protection plan will have to be updated. But one of the largest questions I think we have looming right now is, where does the second treatment plant go?
Yeah.
And also there was a study that was done on the north side of 212 a few years ago. But what is the viability of the south side, you know, where the Southwest Infrastructure Project is gonna be happening? Is that a better spot for it? So there's some of those questions of how this system's gonna work together. How many more towers are we gonna need? Stuff like that. That's gonna be played out in that, which will heavily influence, you know, the infrastructure plan in the future. And maybe it's not 2036, but maybe it's 2045 or something like that, but at least we'll know it's in the pipeline. So, kind of looking at the similar chart that we have last year, you know, new projects, updated cost projects. Some projects have dropped from the list, you know, and those are projects that right now we don't think are in our 10-year plan, but we still want to keep track of those because they will be needed in the future. And that's kind of one of those chart-based exercises as well, of how much capacity do we have in a pipe or a lift station, how long is it going to last, how many houses are going to come into it. So that's kind of the plan update. We can go through year by year, or we can answer more specific questions, because it's a lot, right?
Any preference, council? I feel like we just went through the first couple of years, and okay with that, but do you want to go just through the first couple of action years?
Yeah, so 2027 will be the Southwest Extension, which includes, a portion of that 11 and 40 stormwater improvements, ponding and curb and gutter, and some of those things that weren't realized last year without the road project. It will include getting water and sewer out to public services, so that property will be able to be used. Water system study, stormwater model, and then well 7 siting and design for next year. (2028) we may have the opportunity to get rid of a lift station, so that's what the River Bluffs gravity sewer connection is. That's a temporary lift station. Heavy use of quotations on temporary. But if we can eliminate the use of a lift station, we'll save significant dollars in the long run. Well 7 construction, wellhead protection plan, and then water treatment number 2 land purchase we have programmed for 2028, but that number again will be something that will float from year to year as it's needed, or when we think, maybe 2027 we see a crazy amount of development and the usage at the water plant really skyrockets and we get nervous. But so that would be a number that will just kind of be on the plan as to start to drift out, hopefully.
Can I ask a question about, back up just a sec there?
Yeah.
The River Bluffs, I'm sorry, the lift station you're proposing eliminating. Why are we able to eliminate that, and does it not provide?
There's going to be and Aaron Schmidt can talk more about this project specifically, but there's an opportunity with the road project in Chaska where we can get a gravity sewer pipe in the ground.
Okay.
And then we can eliminate that lift station.
And keeping it wouldn't provide any redundancy if a different lift station failed. It wouldn't help us in that scenario.
It's not connected to anything
Okay.
else.
All right.
So are those the same things as the 2 red items that have been struck from the plan, the Ironwood Park?
So those are different projects.
Now might not be the time, but I'm curious about why those were struck
Yep.
when the time's right.
So let's finish with 2029
Yep, that's fine.
because it gets hazy after that.
Okay.
So a big one in 2029 would be the sewer crossing underneath 212. And some of these projects, as we talk about them and list them in the plans, like one can't happen without the other, right? So the Highway 212 sewer crossing to Levi Griffin, without that project, you cannot make the Big Woods lift station happen and open up that area. So some of these projects have to go in a sequence, otherwise it gets tricky.
I'm gonna jump on this because there's a policy dynamic that I think is of interest for the council we could get feedback on. So the way this infrastructure plan is situated, we're solely bringing this sewer crossing across 212 to open up, I would say, like the boundaries of our commercial industrial area, so it gets to the Geshock and Hartman property. We can serve some of it, but not all of it. And then going up 212, there's a second part of it that you'll see in a later year that we've moved back. And really the story behind that is, at this point in kind of Carver's life cycle, if you open that full sewer to the boundary of Levi Griffin Road past that Geshock property, which is one over from Fleet Farm, there are at least one national builder that would build as many homes as you could, facilitate. And from at least a staff perspective, with the amount of homes in the southwest, with Summerfield or Summergate and the Enclave and things going west, and we all know that as growth occurs, additional infrastructure is needed. We just feel like it's okay to pause on additional residential growth on the north side of 212, but not putting in enough infrastructure to accommodate and incentivize industrial and commercial growth, but to invest millions of dollars to open up what I'd call like a third wing or third residential growth area, at least from our perspective, doesn't seem like the right strategy, but we wanted to have that affirmed by the council. If you wanted to, move that up, you certainly could. I think it would go. But what this also does, if you slow down residential prospects on the north side of 212, it gives you an opportunity during the comp plan process to maybe say, do we want a lot of residential bordering 212 on the north side? Maybe that's more, maybe we need to rethink that and have some more industrial commercial and then transition more going north into residential. And so that's where you see a change in the plan that creates an opportunity for you to talk about policy and growth at a council level.
Well, Southwest came a lot faster than we thought it would. And we've talked about the north side before. So this kind of sounds like build it and they will come. My worry about waiting too long is, nothing has gone down in cost. So do we want to talk about that strategy now, or?
Yeah, I think that's what
Yeah.
Brent just teed up.
I think, as fast as things are moving and as fast as Southwest development came along, I think it's in our interest to really be thinking about and prepping for development on the north side. Now, we may not have residential right away, but if we're looking to expand commercial, I think it's the right time to do it. And all we do by waiting is increase cost for something that's inevitable. That's a real brief outline, but that's how I feel about it.
Okay. Do you have any thoughts?
I understand that argument. I know everything increases in cost as we go, and we're going to need it eventually. And I think that you're right. I think that increasing the commercial development there is probably for everyone's benefit. I am concerned that I don't think we're ready. I'm not ready to open that residential section up just yet. We have a lot of construction going on south of 212, and that would be something I would be worried about. It's just construction fatigue all over.
Just for some additional detail, so the way we have it situated is that, what is that, 2.5 million? 2.8 in 29, and then we come back in 31 with 2 million, so that closes that, then so basically in 2031, whatever happens west of that Geshdock property could happen. But the $2 million is the increment that is kind of the policy discussion.
Okay. And where that money would come in 2028.
Yeah, so the Crossing 212 is a trunk fee project.
Okay.
So it's in the project, so your fee is based on those. If you move it up, it will incrementally impact the fee. I wouldn't say anything significantly, but the type of dollars that you're talking about, you're bonding for this project regardless. So there is definitely a pro and con. You can say, well, we want to wait on development, but it also makes sense that if you're going to do it, you could do it all at once and do it for cheaper. There's a whole spectrum full of choices along that continuum.
Christy, do you have any thoughts?
Eric, I can appreciate that viewpoint a lot on a lot of things. However, I don't know. We can't build everything right now. So saying yes, it'll be more expensive, but we know, inflation works differently, right? Otherwise, a loaf of bread would still be 5 cents. But I'm afraid to overload us with some of this output. These are really, really big numbers. And saying well, it'll be more expensive later. Yes, it will be. We know that. But how much can we handle right now? So I'm wrestling with that a little bit. I see, again, with Brent saying, the policy decision of kind of the do it, don't do it. I can see both sides. I'm not really settled on one yet. It's nice hearing what the rest of the council members are seeing and thinking about it, but I'm struggling just a little bit with, I mean, we've got some really hefty numbers that are coming up here, and it makes me just a little bit nervous. You know, I don't, I mean, we know in the end, when some of these things come in and the taxes start coming back, it lowers things, but I think too, we have to think about what the people who live here now and what people can afford to stay living here. And there's so many big things that are coming up, so I'm just a little bit nervous about that.
Thanks. Lori?
I have a lot of questions, and I think I might have lost track of things. When you said the 2 million, is there a specific line item, or you're talking about earlier in the presentation when we thought the Southwest would be 5 million, but it would be 7.5?
Yeah, so two
Is that
separate
the-
projects, so
okay.
the Southwest, both are funded through trunk fees, so just to like clarify, no existing residents of the city are paying for either of these projects. They're coming via development dollars to fund trunk fees. Second, so the first trunk project is a 7.5 to bring utilities to the southwest area, which is kind of ready to go, kind of baked in. The second piece is to bring the needed sewer capacity to the north side of 212 beyond what you see there today, 2.8 million in 2029. So that takes it kind of west of.
We pause there? Is that the 212 sewer crossing north to Levi Griffin?
Yes.
2029?
Correct.
So 3.5, is that a new number?
She's looking at the grid, the like Excel spreadsheet that's page 4 of the packet.
And I really like the color coding. Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah.
About a third down on the 2029 column.
Yeah, so the 3.5 is a number that didn't get updated. So that's the total project. So last year we had it as one project, so we're splitting it into two. So if you just want to, if you want to reference, it would be page,
Pages 5 and 6.
5 and 6.
Yeah, I don't think those numbers are consistent between the
Okay.
two documents, but
Okay, I'll look at the
Last
document.
year-
That's what was,
from last year to this year, I think the decision was, it's really a two-phase project. There's a project to get it underneath 212, which opens up some spots, but then there's an additional trunk line that would be installed that would open up a much larger area.
and is that, we wouldn't be able to open up more industrial before getting that done? Like it's dependent on that?
Well, there's limited space. It kind of
Limited, okay.
depends on who the user is and if they're a high water or high sewer capacity user. So that's where we don't want to, as you know, like with an industrial project, when they come in, like they want to build like yesterday. So we want to get that sewer crossing in so that we can facilitate that commercial industrial growth. I think maybe to streamline the conversation is you want us, you know, and you can kind of see that savings in real time. Instead of being 3.5, it ends up being probably 4.8. You want to do that all at once in 2029, but then the second part of that story is you're going to have probably a third critical residential area open up, and doesn't mean you have to like allow development to occur there right away, but if you bring the infrastructure there, you probably want to get paid back for it with the fees associated with that. So that's where the crossroads is. Does that answer your question?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
So my position would be ideal to have for the planning part, like ready for both industrial to expand. So maybe we're getting to a spot where it's gonna feel limited, but I don't feel that way with residential. I feel like there's expansion plus more plus more. So it'd be nice to have both going on. So I do support the proposed infrastructure for the 10-year plan. So that kind of would be ready when, in the crystal ball, everything else is ready. But I'd like to see focus on both. It's too hard to just, I feel like right now it's, the infrastructure is a little stronger for residential.
So you're saying split it as presented or
Yes.
keep it all as one?
Split the projects.
Okay. Brent, you were kind of going through 212, number one would be 2029 at 2.8. 212, number two would be 2031 at 2.75-ish. Am I understanding that right?
We have,
He has it at
he has
two.
at 2 million.
Okay, 2 million.
There's a
In 31, I have the year right. Is that right?
Yeah. There's a second 212 crossing that we can do, but we probably even push that further back depending upon what kind of feedback that we get from the council. Because the part two of that 212 crossing, the 2 million, is further east than that second highway. I think there's some clunk in updating the docks that I think we missed. That second,
This is where the first crossing is, if you look.
And
at
that's essentially the industrial crossing, if we're going to label
And then
them.
it's an
Yes.
extension of this large trunk line. The second crossing, because there's a low area on the south, or on the north side of 212, that would be basically served by the mineral lift station.
Okay.
That would go underneath 212 and capture all of this.
Which there, if we wanted to label that, that would be the residential crossing, just in casual terms.
No.
no.
Be
Oh,
additional
it's
residential.
It's two residentials.
Okay, okay.
If it
Both
helps, I think
for
it's helpful
20.
to think of it in terms of, instead of like the pipes, it's like, do you want to open up the third
Yep.
residential area?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out timing.
Sure.
So both of those are for 2031, the additional.
When you say both of those.
You said there are two residential.
One is for 2031 and the next one is years later. It's just incorrectly labeled here.
2034, I think.
2034, okay. Thanks for that. I think we're all struggling a little bit to
Yeah.
wrap our brains
Yeah.
around this. I think I don't have any concerns with it split as you have in the plan right now. We're gonna continue to grow, we need to grow. My really biggest concern is just making sure that we have enough capital from trunk fees to pay for these bonds. And I think we'll have to wait and see what the 10-year financial plan comes back
Yeah.
as, but I think, just with 450 homes at the Enclave and what is again at Summerfield, like 2,000?
Well, their master plan is for 2,500.
Okay.
But that doesn't all come in at once.
Right.
I mean, it gets back to some of the initial conversations on trunk fees that the council had as it relates to tolerance for risk. I mean, the fee is a calculation. They're gonna put the projects that you have in, and that's gonna spit out a fee. And how much that fee impacts someone's willingness to buy land and fit within their pro forma is gonna dictate how much you collect. The risk comes in if you don't collect enough in the fees, then the daily users have to pick up that debt service if the trunk fees don't come in to collect it, so.
Right.
And I really like the column, the sewer or water. And I'm asking this afraid that it's really not possible, but is it simple enough that some projects are like maybe 80% focused on residential and some are 80% industrial?
You're not comfortable with those labels that I put on there?
Yeah, it's hard to,
Or maybe there's a third, like it's both.
it's hard to put a percent on them. As a team, when we talked about it, we viewed the first crossing in 2029, the 2.8, is that opens the door for additional sewer capacity for what we'd call like near-term commercial industrial prospects. So you're talking about going north on north of 212 and west, and that whole Geshtak, Jerry Hartman piece. Because we don't want to be in a position where someone comes in and says, hey, we've got a project, but we can't build it here because the city doesn't have enough sewer.
Well, and that's what I want to avoid. I mean, yeah, so I had said savings in doing it sooner than later, but really this is an investment in the future and prosperity of the community, and there's always some risk in doing this, but we've seen that the momentum is on the city side, the southwest side of town. When we talked about it a couple of years ago, we thought we were 10 years away. So I want to be sure that we are ready for a developer to see that we're ready for commercial development on that side. I think that's really important.
I think that's the one thing that we absolutely all agree
Yeah.
on, is that we want to make sure that we're ready for it. In addition to, like, I think that can come off and be maybe understood as we're not ready for it. We are, to some extent, right now. We certainly have some stuff literally going on right now as we speak. But I think for additional commercial and industrial development, that will help. Do you know what you need from us on that one? I think the split it and wait.
Well, I
was
mean,
worn
there's,
out.
we don't have to decide tonight, but I think we have to decide before we get Northland cooking on the long-term plan. And because if you did all of it, you know, you're gonna do 7.5 million on trunk fees in 27. And I think there's from like a strategic, like finance sense, if you're gonna do 4 million in 29 or 2.8 in 29 and then another 2 in 31, that's gonna impact how you are gonna collect fees and what the amount is, so. And then, I think it helps like the planning staff, like Aaron Schmidt and Andrew and Aaron Smith, what to tell developers, like, does the council want to do that? Like they're, or if the council said, you know what, we wanna get super, ahead of this, and we're gonna do the sewer crossings in 27 since we're already bonding in 27, so we don't have to go through that other exercise, and instead of making it 7.5, we're gonna see if we can do it, everything for 10.5. Like those variances are going to dictate what the methodology outputs, and so having that direction, whether it's tonight or you wanna wait a meeting and give it some thought, I recognize it's a large topic. But then there's also like what you're communicating to the community on growth perspective, so like we have the opportunity for a 3,000 lot residential inventory. Do you want to do things that facilitate opening up more residential lots? So this is a pretty big topic, and so like selfishly for like staff, it would be helpful to have a little bit more clarity on like what your vision is for this, if it's tonight or
Yeah.
delayed.
I know you guys will read it in, I think with the exception of Eric, I think that as it's presented with having an investment in 27, 29, and 31 was where the majority was at, and kind of have a staggered and a phased approach. Am I wrong?
I think that's correct.
Christy, is that where you were leaning-ish?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Lori?
Yes.
Okay.
And I disagree.
Yeah.
I think it's in our interest to move. The message we send to developers is important. The message we're sending about Carver's readiness is important. And we're gonna add, I think, a lot of cost doing it in 3 steps, but I guess that's where we are tonight.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Okay. Is that what you needed? Are we good? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's a lot. Do we want to look at anything else, or kind of, those
I feel
are,
like you
those
said
are
it's-
like the near term,
Yeah.
like,
with you saying it's easy beyond a certain point, I don't know how much good it will do us to,
Right, I
Take
mean, there's
it.
just some projects.
unless you guys feel like you want to look into the crystal
No.
ball.
No.
I'd be interested in revisiting it when we have a better idea of, after a water study, what,
You know, based on like some of the trigger
'Cause-
charts on things like,
because I feel like huge things could shift with a new water study.
could,
There could be some big changes, so.
it could, but I think the story right now is on water capacity is we're in a good spot. And we're keeping track of this every year, monitoring it. And, you know, we're not pumping more than we had projected to pump. I think this weekend we did 1.3 on Friday. But it's been warm and dry.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, how much of that is based on the weather, really?
A lot of it.
Right. So we've lucked out.
During the winter months, we use like $300,000 to $400,000, or not dollars, gallons a day. And in the summertime, you know, doubles, triples.
And I think I just heard a projection today that we're headed into potentially more of a drought season than we had last year. So who knows how that changes it.
The second part to that, Andrew referenced it, but that's selfishly important, I think, for like the council, is that'll tell you where you're, like the areas you can search for land for a water treatment plant. I think it would be beneficial if we could somehow attach ourselves to like a project, like a residential project, and maybe take frontage that's not desirable along 212, whether it's on the north or the south side, and work with the developer to like acquire the property rather than independently. There's some efficiencies that I think can be built in, and maybe based on that, it changes our thinking on some of the other approaches to other projects, and where that's located in relationship to other critical infrastructure. So just some thoughts to leave you with as well.
I have a quick question. Like, there's park dedication fees, can you do something like swap instead of trunk fees? If they donate land? And I know that not to be answered today, but,
Well, you can't use park dedication fees for.
no, correct, just that model. Like, could,
We need that money to pay the debt.
oh, okay. So we're not, it's different order of things being done,
Correct.
right? We need the water before the park.
Correct.
Got it.
So
Okay.
I think we're good. Chrissy's nodding. No emotion whatsoever from the two to my left. Are we
Yeah,
nodding?
yeah.
Are we good?
Yep, we're
Okay.
we are where we are.
Oh, okay. Ooh. Okay. Let's talk about the budget, Mr. Mareck.
Yeah, another kind of big topic for tonight. See if I can get this going here. So we're approaching the 2027 general fund preview in a different way, if you've taken a look at the slides, just because of this, kind of what was alluded to in the infrastructure study, some major projects going forward. So giving you a line of sight, we've seen this, our assessment summary, so this is for pay 2027. Just wanted to again point out the commercial industrial market value or taxable market value loss, just based on some of the litigation that went on with the private utility companies. As it relates to new construction, you know, we are kind of in that area where we expected to be. We can confirm that with Tammy and Jess at Northland. We haven't been in quite a few years in a position where we've lost just overall market value change. So from like an accounting perspective, when we give you tax impact, it'll be a little bit simpler because we'll just be able to base it off of last year. There won't be an overall change related to like what your value is. Our average value of our house has gone up, I think, just slightly. But this is our kind of a breakdown. This is our value distribution. And I know if you're looking at this maybe for the first time, it seems somewhat bleak when you think about tax-based diversification, but In my time here, residential has been over 95%, so we're making progress on that. There's still plenty of work left to do. Agricultural is essentially the land that's been just recently annexed that comes in as that default ag zoning. So I would say the headline story here is our 10-year financial plan and balancing out the perspective for building a new public services facility. I mentioned to the mayor last week as we were kind of talking about this, there's not a way to hide a $35 million investment if that's the number that you land on or how that's going. And so managing the tax rate, I think, is a critical piece for the city council to provide leadership and direction on. And if you look at where we were at in 26, that's not exactly where we're at, but it's in the neighborhood of that 43%. And then that 2-year dip in 27 and 28. So this plan reflects the idea that we were gonna build public services in 28 and then have that debt service for that building come on in 29. So this will be changed when you do the update. But what it tells me is that you could have, going from 28 to 29, a 10% increase in tax rate in 1 year, or you could even it out over 2 years. And so something that we haven't done that you've seen later on in this presentation is we've done some projecting into a 2-year budget to give you at least some things to think about as we head into the budget season. I'm just gonna move this on my screen so I can see it better. So here you can see our anticipated debt service for 2027, as well as what we had for 26, just highlighting the accounting move that we made. Based on our fund balance and 3 different bond funds, we did a deferment and reallocated that to design fee costs for the public services building. So those are coming back on. So you see a 40% increase, but actually, if you compare it to the 2025, it's gonna be less debt service actually than about $6,000 less in debt service that you had in 2025. So that, like when it comes to like the impact to residents for debt service, the result is the same. Just some things to think about. So for an overview, no full-time staff anticipated. That's laid out in our staffing plan. Based on some of the inputs that we use for our pay scale adjustment, that's probably anywhere from 2.5% to 3%. Kind of the global conditions right now are affecting gas prices and inflation, and so we still have time to kind of think on that. The council used a variety of inputs last year. I think there were 4 different models that you landed on. Last year we did 3.75%. So that's just moving the scale, and then there's also the milestone program. I think, Lynn, what are we budgeting for health insurance? 15% increase. That's I know Carver County and Scott County are having kind of a couple of conversations about maybe trying to collaborate on health insurance and welcoming in cities as some type of cooperative, but I think all of you know that health insurance and paying for that is a problem, not just here but in other places. But this going from 15 to 20 to 20+%, every year, this doesn't seem sustainable. It's probably more of a national or global issue, but it really is something that impacts the way that we budget. Thinking about the continuation of the sergeant's position, and then increase of costs for their this level of service with some of the changes to their collective bargaining agreement. We're due for a community survey upgrade, so that's probably in the neighborhood of about $25,000. We also do every other year the strategic plan update. Then we'll have costs related to the comprehensive plan, and then finally just funding the city's capital improvement plan. So did a 2-year outlook based on the documents that you've reviewed to date. So 2027 going to 1.19, excuse me, and then in 2028 going to 1.3. This is the model of funding with cash rather than debt service. And also kind of what the council has kind of hung their hat on related to paying for street maintenance out of the tax levy rather than franchise fees. Showing a little bit of the 2027 street maintenance project is wrapping up the reclamations and mill and overlays in the Carver Bluffs neighborhood. Some other budget outlook pieces. This is getting into the public services project, and I was mentioning, I think it was to the mayor, a couple of you before you first got in today, that I was doing some research, and kind of the region found out that there was additional funding available to make 212 a 4-lane highway in 2002, and the city built the new fire station public services building in 03, and it made me think that the council in that kind of era didn't have the ability to think about Carver. Like if you think about, if someone would have told them in 2002 that Carver would be 7,378 residents 20 years later, I think that would have shocked everybody. It just wasn't on their radar. And so I think that makes it ultimately a lot harder for, like, in different ways, every administration has their own challenges, but the council at that time wasn't thinking about a community of this size, and now you're in a position of thinking of a community not just this size, but you have I think a better line of sight to what Carver's going to look like in 20 years, which presents a whole nother list of challenges. And so I just wanted to kind of lay that as the foundation. We did an interfund loan for the acquisition of the land, so around $900,000, so that you went through the CIP process, so you're ready to bond for that $900,000, or we rounded it to $1 million in our plan in 27. At your July 20th meeting, you'll be presented with an update on the building plan and exterior for the public services site plan layout, updated costs. I can tell you with confidence that we are under the $35 million amount. We're not going to be telling you it's 36 or 37. I want to hold off on what that number is going to be because we're wanting to give you that best number. We also don't want to overpromise and under-deliver, especially at this point in the process. So we're going to give you a number based on the work that Tara, your construction manager at Ortel, and the team are putting through. And so based on that 35 million, so we can start at kind of the biggest impact, that's estimated about 1.5 million. Now there are ways to ladder that, either by issuance length. So you can do, we've traditionally done 20, but you can do 25, you can do 30. You can also use capitalized interest to kind of ladder those payments so that you don't go from 0 to 1.5 million just through the terms of the structure. But there's also ways that you could introduce cash into your budget to do projects to kind of also build from that angle. So what we put in here as a contemplation is adding $250,000 to do the turn lanes in advance to kind of build that budget levy muscle. And then so you do that physical infrastructure project in 27, and then that same kind of budget capacity is placed in 28 to do debt service. Before I move on, just kind of, if there's any specific questions, I can handle that now, or we can wait till the end if there's a preference by the council. I don't want to move too fast for you.
Any questions about this? And I think here too, Brent's getting to the part where we're gonna need to make more of a policy decision here, or at least like guidance towards which direction we wanna see. So looking for that kind of feedback as we kind of progress through this versus line by line feedback on the budget. There'll be plenty of opportunities to do that
So
in June and July
Right.
and
I
August.
do have a
Sure.
quick question. One of the first slides, we had it was the pie graph, and we've gone from 95 to 92%. With the industrial, those that are on TIF, once that expires, then that would increase? Or like,
No, this is value, so that value is already
Okay.
in here. It's just that the tax isn't collected and applied to the general fund.
okay, I think I was just taking it more literal, like, okay, it's just the value, it's not actually the tax collected.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct. I mean, if you think about it, like, a little more than 10 years ago, the city's only industrial project was across from your house on Sixth Street.
Yep.
You know, and so, there's been quite a few changes
okay,
there.
and I know that's in another slide. Then, I just, on the street maintenance, there's the projection that 2027 will be 862. So that we're gonna increase from 745 to 862? Or is that coming in a future
Yeah, so if you
presentation?
think about, so that's the allocation, and that goes to, think about like a savings account for
Okay.
streets, so it builds that fund, so, there is money sitting in there now that's gonna be added to the 745 if you choose to fund that.
Okay.
That adds to that savings account.
So we
for
could
streets.
start funding it now?
So that you could pay for it in 27. You'd have to budget the 745 in your 2027 budget, and then that would go to that savings account so you could buy it in 27.
And then what
Budget for it in
about,
26,
what about the
buy it.
difference if the project ends up costing over 850? Like if it costs more,
It's
then that's,
kind of like with, I would say, any project that costs more, then there's we provide a series of options for
Okay.
you. Maybe we take from another fund, maybe reduce the scope of the project. But I think that the council's provided a lot of great leadership on making sure that our estimates are conservative, so that we hopefully rarely put you in that position where something is over budget. But with the cost of oil and materials, like, it's a really volatile marketplace for pavement and that kind of work.
okay. That was it.
Yep. I'll just continue on and then we can go from there. So I just wanted to kind of jump back into that Jonathan Carver Parkway project. So you could kind of see kind of the scope, I'd call it the scope of work within the confines of that project. Trail and pedestrian culverts, the roundabout that comes from the developer, their stormwater improvements, and then the utilities portion of the roadway. It's an overall right around $15 to $16 million project. So you can see the city's contribution, especially from kind of that initial conversation, is down. It really gets down to what you want it to look like. And there's a limited budget within the confines of this that gets into some of that, but nothing to the scale that you could fund what the existing roundabout looks like. And so there's, again, a spectrum of choices from, you want that at all the entrances, or you could say, no, we want that at the heart of the community, and at the kind of the exteriors we are okay with. Like an example would be like Lyman and 41, it's just kind of taller grasses. And then just a plug for my maintenance friend over here, it's like every time you add another planting area, there's more stuff to weed, more equipment to buy, etc. And so not that you shouldn't do it, but just there's more than just making the purchase. It's making the purchase and then maintain it to the standard that you want to see it at. So a conversation on, are you okay with that? Again, not something you need to decide tonight, but within the confines of the long-term plan, we have 1.5 million for that work. And so thinking about all the other things, do you want to do that? Or do you want to like say, nope, we're okay with having that at 0, and we're gonna take a break on that, do kind of, we want it to look nice, but it doesn't, we're gonna do the monumentation and the heavy landscaping maybe 5 or 10 years from now. I also recognize that when you say 5 or 10 years from now, that could be 20 to never.
I'm hearing Dan Lannis's voice
Yeah.
echo of saying it never gets done after the fact. It
So,
will never be done.
Again, just trying to tee up, there's a lot of choices, and these big choices are things that we're gonna want direction from the council. And so getting into these abstract estimates, again, I tried to be really conservative here. Got a lot of great help from Lynn in putting this together, but this is kind of like an overview of what should expect to see in August when you get that first draft. There'll be a ton more detail. We are thinking that we weren't going to have to fund Southwest Prime planning activities, get into, the community survey, comp plan, strategic plan, employee related as wages, employee benefits, health insurance, public safety is fire, police, operations is this kind of new things or things that you're gonna do that have costs, and then an overall inflation factor, some contingency, and then based on kind of these round numbers, came up with a levy estimate, which is a variance from 26. So this isn't the total levy. This is just 624,000 and change more than what you levied for in 26. And so we apply that same principle, understanding that we have that CIP laid out for 28. Added the full-time fire chief, which is a July 1 start, and then just did that kind of same exercise, but then added the highest impact for the public services facility debt, along with a contingency. And we use these two numbers to kind of model out what your levy impacts could be. So the upper half of the table is, I would say, the traditional piece. So levy increase from the previous year is column 2, and then estimated total levy, that estimated percent increase to the levy, which I know a lot of people track, and then that estimated tax rate. You don't see estimated tax rates for any of the other pieces because that is going to fluctuate based on the level of new construction that we have. And so I know and for rightly so, there's a lot of focus on like the levy, but an analogy that we've used previously in the council chambers is when you have a growing family, your grocery bill is going to get larger. You have more mouths to feed, and so the community is getting larger. It needs to be reasonable, but that levy is going to increase. What does that tax rate come up with? So if you had another family to split the grocery bill with, like, it's a matter of how that pie is being split up. And in the end, especially with public services, recognizing that that investment is going to have its biggest impact year one, and as the community gets larger, it's going to dilute. Now, what that means for every individual's own personal finance is the decision that the 5 of you need to wrestle with and give direction on. But what we did in the yellow and blue is for kind of talking point purposes and discussion purposes, try to flatten that out. As you can see, if you didn't do anything and you just kind of waited till the project was done and you then levied that debt, you'd have a close to a 40% increase. Now again, that's making a lot of assumptions, but we wanted to make those assumptions to give you the space to have that discussion. Or you could develop a strategy of like, okay, we know we're gonna do this within a certain scope. We don't have the detail or the actual amount, but we don't wanna have a conversation with the community about a 40% levy increase. Now, not that 29% is that much better, but it makes a difference, and it gets back to that original comment. You can't hide a capital investment of this size without having an impact. So in the end, as we talked about this with our team, we wanted to give you the space to kind of get yourself used to talking about these types of numbers, have the policy discussions and finance discussions, so that you have enough time to provide us with the type of direction that we need to prepare you with a good first draft budget. And so based on the type of feedback that you give us, I think we'll be more aligned to give you what you'd like to see in that first draft. Is there anything I'm missing on this, Lynn? Okay. This just wanted to point out one thing. We have some debt falling off in 29 and 30. So that, again, it's in a vacuum because there'll be other things in 29 and 30. But it is unique that you have debt dropping off, and so I just wanted to point that out as a FYI. So happy to answer any questions on details, but happy also to sit back and let the council discuss.
Yeah, so let's talk about this in preferences. In terms of, I think, so first of all, Brent, and I said this to you on the phone, but I think it needs to be said in public. This, I think, is one of the best budget presentations that I've seen at this point in the year. Knowing that we've got this significant project coming, I think that it makes a lot of sense to see it as a rough 2-year budget. And I think that this is great. So Lynn and Brent, really good job. Thank you guys for this. With that, Christy, do you have any thoughts on the scenarios that were laid out on this slide?
I wasn't expecting to be the first one called here. So I have a question. When we're looking at the 2028 abstract estimate of the 38.17, we don't obviously know what the, can we go back to the last? Thank you. We don't have the estimated tax rate, but as we get to 2028, do we think that, I mean, do we have a number of housing, like a housing projection that's gonna get some of that spread out, or is 38% really what you think is gonna happen?
So what Northland is projecting is that you'd be in the neighborhood of 47.96. So that's the, if you can see my cursor here, but it's 2 over from the red arrow. So that's anticipating that you build in 28 and your first debt service is in 29. So what our current plan is contemplating is building in 27 and having your first debt service in 28. So basically you're trying to cover a spread of from going from 43 to 47. But if you, the more that it drops, it's anticipating a drop in 27 based on the current inputs. And so there's some unknowns that you'll have a better line of sight to, especially related to estimated city tax rate, which you see in this column here on the table, based on having the project done in 27. But what we know today is that yes, there is, like if you look at 29 at 47.96, by 2035 it's down to 32. So like there definitely is like short-term pain, or however you want to describe it. But like to my knowledge, that at least that I can remember, we've never been sub 38 or 39 for a tax rate, and we were in the high 50s, I think even one year low 60s back in like 2012 or 2011. So I mean, we are going to experience, like the Long talked about, as we grow, like that tax rate is going to be able to come down there. It's not an accident that if you went over to like McLeod County, that you'd find like small cities of 2,000 to 3,000 with tax rates in the 60, 70%. You can see that with like where New Germany's at, and
Hamburg.
You can, it's not unique that those situations arise. It's because of the amount of people, and at some point the level of services becomes a little bit more static, and you just have more people to pay for that.
Okay, so when I'm looking at this chart, I'm just gonna go with the 2026, so it says 43.34. If we just kept that green line just even straight across until 2029, that's gonna bring that bump down some, right? I mean, so if we didn't reduce but we stayed status quo, is that a possibility across the next couple of years? And then that will also adjust a little bit in 2029, knowing there's gonna be a larger jump. I mean, we've had some larger jumps back when we built the fire station, when we built City Hall, things like that.
Well, yes, and think of if the council moves forward and does the project in 27, that 29 number is gonna bump over one to the left to the 28. So you'll be at basically 48% in 28. So that's what you're trying to manage. So if you're gonna be at 48% in 28, and we know that our existing rate is this 43%, if you know, and one of the city council strategic initiatives is to no more than 3% in any given year. If you're gonna go from 43 to 48, you could invoke a strategy that's, you know, basically that's 5%, right? Or 33 and a third, 5%. So you could do 2.5 one year and 2.5 the next, or any combination in between. Or you could say, no, we're gonna let this process play out, and it's gonna be all the way in 1 year. On the outside, that's the, you know, there's gonna be variances. It's not gonna be exactly 48%. The message is you're gonna have probably anywhere, I would say, from a 5 to 8% increase to tax rate to fund that project. And so, as the elected leaders of this community, what do you think the best way is to manage that, if that's a project that you want to support and move forward with? And this is all with the consideration that you'd go through the engagement process and have the feedback and try to cut the costs. But at this point, I'm trying to guide the conversation to like managing like the finance arm and giving that type of direction. And again, it's, I would say, broad strokes, because right now all we're doing is preparing drafts and preparing analysis, and so you're not making any final decisions, because that budget process, as you know, starts at, like, Lynn has been working already on budgets with department heads. You'll get the first draft in August. We go through several additions, truth and taxation. So, but if you have like a flavor that you're like, okay, this is the general approach, we can make a better first draft for you. Because we're not going to put in, okay, let's fund turn lanes in cash in your first draft if the council says we don't want to get into that. You know, we won't do that. But if you have a variation of that, that's what we'd like to show you. Again, knowing that you're going to have multiple steps to critique and review.
So I guess my final thing, and I'll let everyone else get to it too, because I'm sure they have plenty of comments. So I don't obviously like to see a 38% jump, you know, in 1 year. That's not very realistic for what we're trying to do here. But I don't have a problem having a year that does have more of a jump than the tax rate that we've talked about, because this is such a huge project. So while I think that was a great strategic initiative that we had, was to not have these you know, big jumps, for me this one would be justifiable. Not at this much, right? I think we do need to even it out somewhat if we can, but I do think that I'm okay personally with having a little bit of a bigger jump than what we have put in our plan, knowing that this project is going to be a once in at least our lifetimes project. And I think that is something that that will be hopefully understood by residents, that we didn't just decide to do something. This, you know, this isn't we just want more homes because that's what they think, you know, or we're hearing, when is this coming in, or when is that coming in? This is a big project that is needed, that we have to have, but it's going to last us 50 years. And I don't think it's very different to me from City Hall being built, that we all know that we had to have a jump. I don't remember what that looked like for those numbers. So I believe I'm speaking correctly on that. So I guess that's where I'll leave it for everyone else to start too, is that I don't want to see that 38, but if there's a way to temper it, but I also don't have a problem going over that number that we had in our strategic plan, knowing that this is a once in a lifetime project.
So Christy, if given the option of the two that are laid out on this slide, do I hear you saying a little bit more of that bottom scenario?
The bottom scenario, maybe with a little tweaking here and there.
Sure. Yes.
But yes, I would definitely, I mean, obviously we know this isn't set in stone,
Yep.
but I mean, 18 is still a lot, obviously. But 29 is better than the 38, because that's a big jump to swallow all at one time for residents too.
Okay. Thank you. Lori?
I have three things. I'm on the same preference for that slide that we're looking at, so that we don't have that 38% jump.
So the bottom one.
Yes, the yellow and blue. I had a question on slide 9 of, I might have to check my notes here, slide 9. As far as aesthetics, that is my way low on the list of the areas that I would want to
Do you mind,
put the
Lori,
money on.
just so that we can
Yeah.
go through, we're a little short on time.
Okay.
Like, we can put a pin in that and we can talk
Yep.
about that. But I think I would just love to get through and have everybody opine on this slide number 12.
Got it. Okay.
And I think you have. So unless there's anything else you want to say.
No, my third thing was something else, so.
Okay. Kayla.
So I, again, always assuming that we go through with this project, I do have a question. Are we certain, I mean, we're not certain, but how much is that 47.69% going to go up because we will not have the annual step up in tax base by having it in 2028 instead of 2029?
Can you say it again?
Yes, so right now, we have 2029, we have an estimated city tax rate of 47.69. That is assuming an additional year's worth of property coming into the tax base. So how much of an increase can we expect to see in that 47.69 by moving it up to 2028
Yeah,
instead of
good
2029?
question. So that's the detail that the long-term plan will produce. So I don't want to speculate, but with Lynn and Tammy and Jess working on it, we'll have that number prior to you having to make a decision on the budget. That's one of the reasons why we wanted to move this up, recognizing so you can use this information as an information source for you to make decisions on the budget. I just can't answer that for you or for you tonight.
I understand. So just keeping that in mind,
Yep.
that number is probably gonna be at least a little bit larger, because
Yes.
we're gonna have many fewer homes and commercial businesses in that tax base, going from one to the other.
Yes,
Um,
it'll be the change between whatever you'd have in 29 would be to 28, so I think you're correct in assuming that it'd be higher than that 47.96, it's just a matter of what that
What that number is.
incremental
Okay.
increase is.
I would much rather see, I mean, and this is regardless of what that number is, I just wanna make sure we're tracking that. I would much rather see scenario B than scenario A. If we know that we're going to be jumping up the tax rate that much, I find it disconcerting to drop it down so low first and then come back up and hit people with an even bigger bill, so.
Thank you. Eric?
I can't really add anything to the conversation. I think Christie summed it up pretty well. So I am supportive scenario B.
And I will round out in agreement. I think it's almost, it's not, certainly 2 years of double-digit increases is not what anyone of us up here wants to see. I think sometimes, I just remember last year going into, in August, before we had property values and those kinds of things, looking at what tax rate would be, I think sometimes the numbers surprise us a little bit. I know it certainly did me last year, but I think it is not the way that we want to go of dropping it down and then raising it up. So I would go with scenario B as well. We've got 3 minutes, and I rushed you, Lori, so if you want to go back to your questions. Go ahead.
Lori, I want to agree with you on the aesthetics treatments for the roundabout. I believe you said that it was lowest on your list, and it's very low on my list.
Because of what it looks to be the locations, there's just other areas in the city.
Do you have any other questions?
No.
You said you had 3.
Actually, I do. There's that bar graph, and I think what we are all proposing with scenario B, that this graph would change, and there would be less up and down between those years?
Correct.
Okay.
Essentially, 2028 kind of gets taken out of it and everything beyond that
Just-
shifts left.
A little more flat. Okay.
Okay, are we good?
Yeah, if there's just any additional, do you want to keep 1.5 in for treatments for the corridor and roundabout? If there's,
Is that consistent with what we spent for kind of phase one of JCP? I thought it
I
was,
think it probably was, frankly, I think it was closer to like 3 million.
oh, okay.
Because it's, you had all the monumentation, pretty heavy landscape, so it's, I don't have the number,
Yeah.
but I am nearly, I'm almost certain it was in excess of 1.5.
I feel like we have our kind of a gateway to Carver areas looking good, and I'd rather put the next focus on anything downtown or what gets incorporated to the levy.
And I'm gonna go, oh, sorry. I was
Go
gonna
ahead,
say- And I'm
Kristen.
gonna go back to where we can have a lot of things, but we can't have everything. And considering some of the output and things that are happening, I don't have any desire to, put a lot of money in aesthetic treatments for this roundabout at this time.
Anyone else have any thoughts?
I don't have any idea what 1.5 would look like, so I don't have an opinion. Is basically where I come down on that.
Eric?
I was really hoping for some statues, but, no,
The Eric Hirschman statue is gonna be pushed back.
I agree. I don't know what that would look
Yeah.
like, so it is hard to have an opinion, but I also agree it's a lower priority as a
Yeah.
beautification
What
project.
Yeah.
we could do is, for your, I think we have some time at your next work session, what we could do is give you a concept, kind of low, middle, high, so low would be kind of baseline, middle would be probably the 1.5, and then high would be replicate what you see at Sixth and JCP, and then that'd give you a basis for making a decision on that. It doesn't hurt on this to have 1.5 in your plan at this point, as long as we make it as kind of inkle or bit of choice
Yeah,
by our next meeting.
I think that's good. I echo
think
what
that's
Kayla and Eric said. I don't know if 1.5 means heavily planted and monuments, and would love to have a better idea of kind of what that
Yep,
is. So,
certainly.
okay.
Great idea.
Awesome. Okay, let's, do you have what you need from us on
I
budget?
do, thank you.
Okay. Let's hold on to water rate tier discussion for the meeting. Let's hold on to everything else, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn, please.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Councilmember Perchman,
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Sayer. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Pasco?
Aye.
Councilmember Sayer?
Aye.
Councilmember Pershman?
Aye.
Councilmember Conrad?
Aye.
Mayor Johnson?
Aye, motion passes, and we are adjourned.